This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. Whoa, hey, hey, Richard, Richard.
Wow. What?
Richard, Spotify has Wrapped or something. I don't know. I don't really use Spotify, but everyone's posted their Spotify Wrapped, and I'm here to tell you that someone with the Instagram username Salt Otter has us as one of their top listened to podcasts, and I said I'd give them a shout out, and if I don't do it at the start of the episode, I will forget to do it.
You won't. It's funny, yeah, like, because Spotify Wrapped has obviously come out over this weekend, I'll say, for when this episode comes out, and everyone's been posting theirs, and because you, as you mentioned, you don't really use Spotify, and so you've been, I've heard you sort of talking about. You know how like when like Spotify, it keeps on asking you like, oh come on, you won't have ads, you can skip songs or whatever.
Yeah, join premium, please, bro. Please join premium.
It's because the way you say it, it's like I understand that you're looking for this like sense of familiarity, and for everyone to go, oh my god, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never used Spotify free in my life.
No, I realized that quickly, that the incredibly relatable joke I kept making was not relatable to anyone whom I made it to, and that's because if people didn't use Spotify Premium, they would know how goddamn desperate this little app that I open once every few months to maybe listen to a specific podcast that only releases on Spotify, that as soon as you do that, it starts downloading something and it goes, hey, join premium. And every time I click no, because it would genuinely be like a waste of money for me to join premium. You know, like I just don't use it at all.
Bill, so that's how I have it.
Right. It's funny that it is like this, because they're probably confused, because everyone just so like, it's like an internet bill. It's like, you got to have Spotify Premium, and so I'm this outlier. And the reason I think it's relatable is because it's obviously happening to me, and the reason it isn't relatable is because Spotify's looking at it and going like, "There's someone who isn't on Premium. We need to tell them about this."
Well, that's the thing. I would forget there is a free version of Spotify if I wasn't reminded once a year by you when Wrapped comes out. like the idea that it's like like just the fact that you're saying Spotify Premium sounds so foreign to me. Like just the fact that you have to clarify you mean premium. It's like, yeah, dude, of course.
I say free the shackles. Spotify's terrible to its artists. Let's get people using Bandcamp, I've heard from my musician friends, as the preferred, that's the fairer one, I guess. So maybe I'm like just like how me never learning how to drive has become something I can tell people is what makes me like a green environmentalist. I am protesting Spotify, and it's not at all because I just don't really listen to music leisurely that often. It's because I want to support struggling artists.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
I think that's it. Welcome along, everybody, to the Cult Popture podcast, a podcast which, for some of you, is the top of your Spotify Wrapped, or just on the list. I shouldn't assume that we're the top of everyone's list. It's nice. Keep sending it to us, though. We like it. And this is, of course, film franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast, where once a fortnight we watch a different film franchise. My name is AJ, if you didn't catch that, and I'm talking to my best friend in the whole wide world, Richard.
Okay.
That's not, just to be clear, AJ, that is not reciprocated.
Well, I just this once, I will reciprocate it because it is Christmas. It's the spirit of giving to those less fortunate. So just in this case, I will tell you that you are my best friend in the whole wide world until December 25th.
Okay. And then Santa's your best friend?
Yeah.
Or is that the limit of when you'll tell me that I'm your best friend?
Yeah, because then it's like, then what, maybe on your birthday, I'll get DJ Qualls to tell you.
Oh, nice.
Which I bought AJ a cameo from DJ Qualls for his birthday this year. Which was
an actor
fun.
I vaguely recognize and kind of like.
Yeah.
Because it's Christmas, Richard, we thought it'd be cool to do some Christmassy franchises, to get into the Christmas spirit. And because there's not a lot of Christmas franchises left that we've yet to cover, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here for anything that could be vaguely related to Christmas. And I'm happy to report that the Night Night at the Museum trilogy does in fact have snow in the first one.
Yeah, and 1 and 3 came out like the week before Christmas. They were really like capitalizing on that kind of thing. And actually, the tagline for Night at the Museum 2006 was, "This Christmas, it won't be a silent night."
That's very Christmassy for a movie which doesn't have the word Christmas in it. Well, it has the word Easter in it, as in Easter Island head.
Yeah, that's true. This is Film Franchise Fortnights. We are here to talk about the Night at the Museum trilogy, which consists of, no surprises here, 3 films. Night at the Museum 2006, Night at the Museum Battle of the Smithsonian in 2009, and Night at the Museum Secret of the Tomb in 2014. All 3 films are directed by Sean Levy, which is a nice sort of, it's a nice, what's the word? It's a nice thing that doesn't happen all
Consistency?
the time. Consistency, that's the word I was looking for, thank you. The first 2 are written by Robert Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon, who actually have a book on screenwriting, which is like how to write $1 billion franchise, and they're referring to Night at the Museum.
Really? Did Night at the Museum make $1 billion?
Between all 3 of them, it says, writing movies for fun and profit, how we made $1 billion at the box office, and you can too, is what the book is called.
Wow. Well, I could potentially ask Thomas Lennon about that myself because he follows me on TikTok.
Yeah.
He does not respond to my DMs asking him if he wants to be on the podcast, so I guess I couldn't ask him, but he does follow me, and he has liked a couple of my videos. If you're listening, Thomas, please come on the show.
You should post this
Tell us
clip.
how to make $1 billion.
Post this clip on your TikTok.
Tag him in it.
Yeah.
That's such an abusive use of like people following me on TikTok.
Yeah, so Night at the Museum. What is the first film about, AJ?
So the first film is about Ben Stiller. He plays a character named Larry Daly, which is a weirdly memorable name from a franchise which I would tentatively suggest has not stayed particularly hot in the pop culture zeitgeist. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I think it's partially a generational thing, but I think it is one of those things where, like, you could reference Night at the Museum to anyone within 5 to 10 years of age from us, and they would know what you meant. Like. If you said, like all these people running around after dark, you could be like, a bit of a Night at the Museum situation. And 9 times out of 10, they would find that hilarious.
Yeah, but they wouldn't say
it would depend on your delivery.
They wouldn't say to you, yeah, I feel just like Larry Daly. Or if they did, you wouldn't really know what they meant, which I think is interesting because they say the words Larry Daly so many times in this franchise that you would think they're trying to make it bloody.
They say Larry Daly daily. And nightly.
It's almost like it's like the second franchise in a row where they want an iconically named main character, but unfortunately Indiana Jones is just infinitely more catchy than Larry Daly, I guess.
Well, maybe if they'd titled the second to Larry Daly and the Battle of the Smithsonian, and then you would come on here and go, just call the first one Larry's Night at the Museum.
Even that wouldn't be. It's
not
the same
it's
thing.
Even worse. Larry
Daly and the Night at the Museum.
Yeah,
I guess would be it.
Larry Daly and the Secret of the Tomb.
We will talk about the titles because I do have something I want to say. But first, the first film. So he is a sort of wannabe inventor. He invented the like a light that turns on when you snap your fingers.
Which is obviously hilariously similar to the clapper, which
which is easier. Clapping's easier.
Well, arguably.
There's a joke from I love on this podcast when we just recite deliveries from the movies.
Although, fun fact about that
yep.
that exchange when he goes to the patent office or whatever, that's his real life mother he's speaking to.
Ah, well, she's great. Good job. Larry Daly's real life mum or Ben Stiller's real life mum?
yeah. Ben Stiller's real life mum.
My aim is to say Larry Daly as many times as it's said in these movies.
Nice.
So he gets because he needs to make ends meet because he's a divorced dad and doesn't want his kid to think he's a loser. He gets a job as a night guard at the New York Museum of Natural History, which boasts a bunch of fascinating wax statues and all these sorts of things, as well as an Egyptian exhibit housing the tablet of
Akhmun-Ra.
Akhmun-Ra, which is a solid gold tablet, which Larry soon finds out has a magical power, and that magical power is that every night it will bring to life all of the things in the museum, whether that be something that has a one-to-one translation to being alive, like Robin Williams as Teddy Roosevelt is just a wax figure, so he becomes a real figure, but also the aforementioned Easter Island head comes to life with a personality and a voice. And also the actual mummy itself, our second franchise this year to include a mummy in it.
More so if you include actual mothers.
That's true. Very true. Evangelion being one of the main ones that comes to mind.
People are going to love that reference, AJ, and you making it especially.
But the point is that even it's not just wax figurines or statues that comes to life. It's also this dead mummy comes to life, played by Rami Malek, looking pristine like he isn't 2,000 years old.
It's his first film role too, which is why he looks so pristine.
Oh. Anyway, so the story of the first one's pretty simple. He sort of just tries to impress his son and not get in trouble with Ricky Gervais, who's the boss, the boss of the museum. Then Dick Van Dyke, Bill Cobbs, and Mickey Rooney, who are the old night watchmen, they come along and they're like, hey, we're giving you this job, and then it turns out, Richard, that those guys are actually the villains, and they aim to steal the tablet because it revitalizes their old joints, which is strike one on the, what exactly does this tablet do? Question that I have. Does it bring things to life, or does it heal old bones? What does it do? I'm not entirely sure.
It does all sorts of things, mate.
It does all sorts of things. And so there's a final confrontation. There's a few more rules I should probably mention. The things that are brought alive by the tablet cannot be outside the museum. Well, they can't be touched by sunlight or they'll turn to dust, basically. And along the way, we also have Owen Wilson and Steve Coogan as Jedediah and Octavius, who is a cowboy and a Roman emperor or Roman soldier, respectively. Who else we got? We got a monkey named Dexter, a capuchin monkey. The Easter Island head is played by Brad Garrett and talks in a voice pattern which would have been very funny to children in 2006. I think. I know I would have found it hilarious because he calls Ben Stiller dum dum, and get this, he follows it up with "Give me some gum gum." This is the $1 billion screenplay that Thomas Lennon.
Well, this is a $500 million screenplay. It actually was the fifth highest grossing movie of 2006.
Wow.
We've actually covered 6 out of the top 10 highest grossing films of 2006. Do you want to name them?
Casino Royale.
That is one of them. That is number 4.
Is it one of the Fast and Furious movies?
No.
Is it one of the Evangelion movies?
No.
It won't be.
The number one was for a time the third highest grossing film of all time, or maybe even the second.
Oh, Terminator?
No.
No? So to be specific, I meant Terminator 3, which actually came out 2003, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're gonna have to tell me.
So the top 10.
I have a blind spot with 2006. Every movie that came out in 2006, for some reason, I thought it came out in 2007. I don't know, but that's just a consistent.
All right.
thing
So
for me.
number 10, which we have covered, is Happy Feet. Number 9, which we haven't, Superman Returns. Number 8, which we have, Mission Impossible 3. Number 7, which we have, X-Men The Last Stand. Number 6 is Cars, which we haven't covered yet. Number 5 is Night at the Museum. Number 4 is Casino Royale, as you said. Number 3, which we haven't covered, is Ice Age The Meltdown.
Wow.
Number 2 is The Da Vinci Code, which we also haven't covered. And number 1, which for a time, as I said, it was the third film in cinema history to gross over $1 billion and is currently the 35th highest grossing film of all time. That is Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest.
All of those are franchises.
They are, yeah.
So all of those could potentially one day we could have covered the top 10 from 2006 across various episodes.
Yeah, I mean the only Cars and Happy Feet are original IPs. But then obviously they had, so they went on to have sequels. But just goes to show you. No one likes movies anymore. No one likes movies anymore.
It is crazy that since 2006 that the highest grossing has become, what'd you say, the 35th?
35th, yeah.
So that means in the last, how many years has it been since 2006?
15.
16 years? 15 years? That all of those, like the 35 more movies have come out in that time that have beaten a record breaker. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting to look at, so that was the third film to ever gross $1 billion. And you look at 2019, and the top 9 films all grossed over $1 billion. The top one grossing 2.7. So, yeah, I mean, it's it's regularly trounced. Although, of course, box office hasn't been so hot the last couple of years.
Hey, but we congratulate them when something like Venom 2 makes half its budget back. We're like, oh, cool, it's looking good.
So,
nice.
Tell me, what did you think of Night at the Museum, and have you seen it before?
I have seen it before. I'd only seen this one, though. I hadn't seen the sequels.
That's such a shock.
And I remember going to see it with my mum in the cinemas, and I think we bought it on DVD. I really like Night at the Museum 1, and I really liked all of these. I do think that this franchise as a whole is remarkably one of the most consistent we've ever covered, I think, in terms of quality across all movies. That being said, I don't think any of them are amazing. It's maybe the worst Gold Star franchise we've covered. Gold Star meaning all the films are as good as each other.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to reveal that at the end, that it was a Gold Star franchise.
Well, maybe it's not true. Maybe we need to have a conversation about it, because that's also got to take in critical consensus. Yeah, but true. I guess if you were going to reveal it, then the critical consensus was that.
I've just seen that writing movies for fun and profit, fun and is crossed out on the cover. The testimonial on the front cover is from Ben Stiller, and it says, "These two guys are the reason Night at the Museum won so many Oscars."
That's the funniest joke I think I've ever heard Ben Stiller make.
This film obviously was not even nominated for any Oscars.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is that Paul Rudd plays Ben Stiller's ex-wife's new husband in the first one. It's the only one Paul Rudd's in, and it's a relatively empty role. I think the point is that they didn't want to demonize the new man, so it's just a generally likable guy. But one thing I thought when watching that, I was like, if this was made now, Paul Rudd would play Larry Daly. Like I'm not saying Ben Stiller would necessarily play the new husband, but
the bull,
Paul Rudd has definitely taken the spot that Ben Stiller had.
Yeah, their roles generally kind of played more by a Bobby Cannavale type.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in terms of what I thought of it, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a really fun concept. I think there are, across all films, there are like not necessarily even shortcomings, just stuff that could have been better.
Just Cummings.
Just Cummings. and I think for that reason I'm not blown away by any of them. They're more pleasant than they are particularly good.
Yeah.
I would say.
The Cummings didn't blow you.
No.
Yeah, so it's got
What's
like
it have on Rotten Tomatoes?
That's a good point. 43%, which is quite low, and I'm sure will be a massive shock to you.
That is lower than what I was expecting.
Yeah,
and
I mean, you were probably thinking something like mid to high 70s, right?
Okay, we'll say this now. This is our second time recording this part of the episode. Yeah, I know you wanted to mention
20
it.
minutes. That's right, everybody. There's a new Lost episode in town because we recorded 20 minutes of this episode, decided we didn't like it, and there were other reasons as well, and then started again, and you didn't fucking know until right now.
And let me tell you what, this new record is much better. It's already the energy is so much better.
Oh, so much better. I hope that this that creates a lore around like the Lost episode 2. And it's equally as like you actually don't want to hear it. Like there's nothing wrong with it's mostly it was connection issues that just forced us to try again. But
because what a lot of people don't tell you about podcasting is that the chemistry of the hosts actually relies completely on the latency that they're able to communicate with each other. And as soon as you put them 2 to 5 seconds out of connection with each other, none of the jokes land. The laughs go from like genuine laughter to like sort of pity laughs because you knew that was you were supposed to laugh.
I couldn't hear the end of your sentence, but I think it was a joke. Here you go.
Yeah. Whereas in this case, I heard the end of your sentence perfectly.
And I didn't think it was funny.
So I hope everyone enjoys that little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, so Night at the Museum, it is, as for me, I think, this is a perfectly good kids film, like family film. It is for a movie that came out like the week before Christmas or the week leading up to Christmas or whatever. That, especially because I guess now with I think Avatar was the first like really, really big blockbuster that was like, December's our thing, and then since then like December there's always the blockbusters. And I think that because Christmas is weirdly apparently quite a busy day for going to the movies, and it's this kind of film that like should be in those cinemas, and you should have like, this is a perfect, it's traditionally you take the whole family to the movies for Christmas every year. You'd love to see it, to put on Night at the Museum. It's just it's that kind of movie, and it's perfectly serviceable in every way, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. That it's like,
please don't unfollow me, Thomas Lennon.
Yeah, this isn't going to be people's like favorite movie necessarily, but it's such a solid franchise, and it's hard to really fault in any major way. Like I can't, despite the fact it has 43% of Rotten Tomatoes, I can't imagine anyone hating these. Like you're watching these and actually genuinely hating them. I can understand you being like, whatever, but there's nothing in them that's going to anger you,
Yeah, I reckon this. I'm gonna check my my Letterboxd list because a while ago I went back and I did like all my top 10s of different years.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna see where I placed this in the top 10 of 2006 because I reckon I reckon it will be within the top 10 is what I'll say. Like I don't reckon it's changed. 2006, I have put this 18th. I reckon I'd lift it up a bit.
What's it next to?
It sits between the bench warmers and the fountain. That says more about my taste on the fountain than it does on any of the other movies on this list. But looking at it now, I reckon I could stand to shake this list up a bit. So maybe I'll break the seal on my unspoken rule, which is do not change your rankings after you've done them because it'll drive you insane. Yeah. For anyone wondering, my top 3 of 2006 is at number 3 I've got The Departed, at number 2 I've got Casino Royale, and at number 1 I've got Children of Men. So
Good year.
There you
Good
go.
year for film.
It is a good year for film.
It
You're
is.
dead right. Looking at all these.
So interesting thing, I talked before about how the box office has changed lately, which due to the pandemic. One thing that we've seen as a result of that is a lot of this like day and date in theaters and on streaming kind of thing, or these at the very least like a shortened theatrical window where the movie will come out after on video on demand or on home video or whatever after 45 days or even less sometimes. Apparently, so major cinema chains in the UK actually pulled this film off their screens when 20th Century Fox announced they were going to release the DVD only 3 months after its theatrical debut. And so they were so pissed off at a 3-month exclusive theatrical window that they said, right, if you're only giving us 3 months, we're not playing it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's insane to
3
think now.
months.
Yeah.
That really brings into light how long movies stay in the cinemas after you've seen them. Like, I remember going to the cinemas 6 months after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out and seeing it was still playing and just feeling sick at the idea that someone hadn't seen it yet and would go see it now for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like... yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think it stays in the cinema that whole time, but just the idea. I think it's the idea that it's like, oh, okay, say it's in the cinema for, I was going to say 12 weeks. That's 3 months, but say it's in the cinema for 6 weeks, and then it's like it gets to the end of 6 weeks, which is when the cinema makes most of its money. It doesn't have to put the majority of the ticket sale to the studio. That they're worried that people are just going to go, oh, well, it's going to be on DVD in 6 weeks. I'll get it then, you know?
Yeah.
It seems so foreign now that, like, if a movie, like, especially, during the pandemic, if a movie came out 3 weeks ago and it's not on VOD yet, I'm fucking pissed off. I am, as you're listening to this now, I am out of lockdown and I will have been to the movies. I'm out of lockdown from tomorrow. But by the time you're listening to this, I will have been to the movies 2, if not 3 times. So,
well done.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exciting. Do
you reckon this is a reason why there is a movie like Night at the Museum where it's set at winter but not explicitly at Christmas? Because if you set it at Christmas, no one's going to want to see it in February, and then you have to wait until the festive season again to release it on DVD. So they make it. Maybe
these these cinema chains were like, no, we take, because they were like, no, Night at the Museum is a Christmas movie. I won't have you selling DVDs of a Christmas movie in February or March.
Yeah, that'll be
and
fine.
So, and they're like, no. Like they were just so morally outraged that they thought, no, we have to we have to make you guys release this next Christmas on DVD or VHS. I've got some dumb IMDb trivia. This is the kind of franchise that's just right with dumb IMDb trivia.
Which is, by the way,
IMDb trivia is a segment. I'm getting there.
Okay.
So IMDb trivia, if you didn't know, the trivia section on IMDb is user submitted, which means that it's oftentimes quite dumb. Whether that's sometimes it's just it speaks for itself why it's dumb. Sometimes it's just poorly written. Sometimes it's like not trivia. And so we will see what we like to highlight that. So here's one dumb IMDb trivia. This is the entire trivia entry. Rami Malek is Egyptian. And it's like, okay,
well,
okay, I mean, it is a piece of trivia that's like, the actor is actually Egyptian. He's playing a mummy. But it's just with just 4 words. Rami Malek is Egyptian. Okay.
Yeah. Where the piece of trivia would be he's actually Egyptian.
Yeah.
In real life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe this person, their word economy is something to be praised for.
Something to behold.
Yeah. So at around 1 hour, 29 minutes into the film, when Jedediah and Octavius are draining air out of the van tire towards the end, Jedediah says, "I ain't quitting you," in his usual country accent, a reference to Brokeback Mountain 2005. Now...
I did notice this.
I get that is a reference, but it's just funny that they pointed out that he keeps his accent for that one line.
Well, I guess again, I think I can see the piece of trivia they're trying to construct within this garbage dump of a sentence. And I think what they're trying to say is that it's a reference to cowboys because it's a sort of a line from Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
Maybe the most famous cowboy movie of the 21st century.
And this one, probably our most famous Dumb IMDb section. Well, second most famous, actually. Most famous being the Toy Story 2 one. But this, another one that on the Hellraiser episode, every single Hellraiser movie had as a piece of trivia the word Cenobite means member of a monastic order. And this one, the entire piece of trivia says, a docent is a person who acts as a guide, typically on a voluntary basis in a museum, art gallery, or zoo.
Right.
I wasn't asking.
And is that... Yeah. Yeah. Who did they say docent in the film? Because I don't remember it.
Yeah. Apparently, in the second one, Mindy Kaling's character is just called docent, which is a guide. But this is for the first film, so who gives a shit? But speaking of the second film, let's move on to it.
All right. First, I do want to say though, I like to look up now that we've got our we can look at our stats on Letterboxd and we can find interesting little statistics. And when Ricky Gervais showed up in this one, I was like, God, how many times have we seen Ricky Gervais, you know, at a point in his career where everyone was like, oh, you have to get Ricky Gervais in your thing. Like, how many times have we seen Ricky Gervais do that? And I looked up, so he's in the other two Night at the Museum movies, and he's also in Muppets Most Wanted and Spy Kids 4 All the Time in the World, where he plays the dog and is the worst part of the movie. And I would like to say that if you go back and listen to our Spy Kids episode, you'll hear us just completely dunk on the guy for being like, clearly like he's commodified his natural charm and charisma into something that works for this dumb film and is horrifically annoying. I think the Night at the Museum movies kind of perfectly capture Ricky Gervais and get him to play the best character he can, which is like someone who's hiding how insecure they are, but also like wielding their power over the people that work under them. And so I just want to say, it's in some ways this is a redemption from Spy Kids All the Time in the World.
A redemption.
Oh, that almost works.
You did not like that.
It's also our second Ben Stiller trilogy this year,
which
and
features Owen Wilson in every film as well.
That's true. That's true.
And also features one film where a character hilariously looks exactly like Ben Stiller.
Yeah, because in the third one, there's a caveman that looks like that's played by Ben Stiller, and in Meet the Fockers, there is a kid who's supposed to be Ben Stiller's supposed son. We can move on. I should just say that this is our third Robin Williams franchise after Jumanji and Happy Feet as well.
Oh yeah.
Do people find this interesting?
I do. Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, 2009. Also directed by Sean Levy. What is it about? Have you seen it? What did you think of it? And what does it have on Rotten Tomatoes?
I had not seen this one. I'd definitely seen clips of it. I knew that Amy Adams plays Amelia Earhart in it, but I didn't really know what it was about. I actually incorrectly believed they were all just set at the Smithsonian because I didn't know what that was. And was the other question, what did I think of it?
No, what is it about?
Did I like it? What's it about? All right, this one is about... Larry Daly, who has moved on from his night guard job, returns to the museum one night to say hi to his chums, only to find that they're being replaced with, high-tech versions. So instead of statues, it'll be like holograms, and that they're being shipped away to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., in the basement where they'll be kept in perpetuity, basically, as, something they might use one day. And because he doesn't want his friends to be locked away for eternity, he breaks into the Smithsonian, goes underground, where the tablet is there and it's been activated, and it is revealed that Akhmun-Ra's brother, played by Hank Azaria, is running about causing a muck because he's the evil version, because the Rami Malek was the nice version. And he wants to use the tablet, which apparently has more power than we originally believed. He wants to use the tablet to open the portal to the underworld and take over the world. And so he teams up with Amelia Earhart, and they have to go on a mission to unlock the code of the tablet, so to save Jedediah's life and a bunch of stuff. The point is that it's at a new museum. There's new characters, and a little bit more of the magic is revealed, I think, of the tablet itself.
So yeah, as you mentioned, you've got a bunch of new characters in this one. So obviously, along for the ride, we have your Steve Coogans, your Owen Wilsons, your Robin Williamses. But yeah, also
not in this one as much, Robin Williams.
But yeah, so we've got Amy Adams, as you mentioned, playing Amelia Earhart, and a woman who looks just like her. Jonah Hill as Brundon, the security guard. If Ricky Gervais, the hottest thing in 2006, you had to get him in your film. Jonah Hill's the same thing for 2009.
Absolutely.
But different kind of stock than he has now. It was, you need a dumb fat guy to be awkward. Get Jonah Hill in, whereas now it's he's a fucking Oscar-nominated actor. You've also got Hank Azaria, as you mentioned, who anytime there's a character who's just their voice, it's very clearly Hank Azaria as well, because it's you got Hank Azaria in your film, let's fucking wring him dry. You have Christopher Guest plays Ivan the Terrible. John Bernthal, in a very early role for him, plays Al Capone. Bill Hader's General Custer.
I had a cat named after Custer when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Isn't that a weird thing to name a cat after?
It is, yeah. Jay Baruchel. Eugene Levy plays some Albert Einstein bobbleheads. Craig Robinson shows up. Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben Garant have a little cameo as the Wright brothers. And is there any cameos you noticed in this one that are somewhat important to film franchise Fortnights in the Cult Popture podcast?
Is it Oscar the Grouch and Darth Vader show up?
No, Oscar the Grouch and Darth Vader are in the film. Obviously, Oscar the Grouch, who we saw in the Sesame Street films last year. Which this is actually Carol Spinney's last film, because he retired from acting in 2018 and died in 2019. 10 years before, but he didn't do any films after that. But no, at the Air and Space Museum, when they bring the tablet through, so that brings everything to life and all the launch sequences start, there's a very brief cameo from one Clint Howard as mission control tech, because he's reprising his role from Apollo 11 or 13.
I thought that's what it was. Yeah.
What's the movie? Apollo 11.
Apollo 13.
Apollo 13. Fuck. Looks like it.
13's the one that they made the movie about. 11. Okay. 11 was the Neil Armstrong one. Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Right, starting the podcast again for a second time.
So this is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th Clint Howard franchise. We always talk about how he pops up and everything. There's only 6 franchises. Can you name them? One.
Oh my god.
One that we didn't cover on the podcast.
Oh my god.
He's in a film we covered later.
Oh, so he's in a one we did for the Patreon.
Yeah. When you think Clint Howard films, what do you think of franchises?
I think of is he in an Earbud?
No.
He's Beethoven. He's in a Beethoven.
He's in Beethoven's fifth.
I was thinking Beethoven, not Earbud. I said Earbud by mistake. Is he in? He's not in Revenge of the Nerds. That's Curtis Armstrong.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put you out of misery. He's in American Pie Girls Rules, which is the one we covered on Patreon.
Of course.
He's in Rob Zombie's Halloween. He's in all 3 Austin Powers movies. And he's in the original Jungle Book from 1967.
Who's he play, Mowgli?
No, he's like a commander's son.
Oh,
he's like a little kid in it. But yeah, because he was a child actor. Much like his brother Ron.
It's weird to think of him as the guy who always pops up in franchises, only to really put the answer to them and be like, it's not really that true. He's in a few that you'd notice, but most of them aren't.
Most of them are Curtis Armstrong, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm... And Richard Reel. I'm mixing up the 3 together.
Okay, so yeah, what did you think of this film the first time watching it?
Yeah, I really like this one. I don't think it's mind blowing, and I think out of all three, this is the one that leaves me with the most questions about its internal logic of the world.
Well, because as you so rightly pointed out, the entire plot of the film wouldn't happen if Larry remembered from the first film that you could turn
Yes.
the tablet off, which isn't like they retconned that piece out of it because it's important to the plot of the third one.
Yeah. So we should go back. So earlier in this week when I was watching this film, I messaged you and I was like, am I going crazy or is there like a massive glitch and a massive plot hole in this? And you're like, what do you mean? So in the first night at the museum, the entire third act climax is predicated on the fact that the tablet, one of the little panels in the tablet gets turned and it disarms the magic, so that when when Larry Daly is showing his son Nicky what happens at the museum at night, it doesn't work and his son just thinks he's gone crazy. And that's when it's revealed that Dick Van Dyke and all those guys are the bad guys because they've stolen the tablet. And the way they turn it back on again is Nicky twists the panel, which reignites the magic, something which Larry tells him to do, meaning Larry knows explicitly that that's how you turn the tablet on and off. And then in this one, it's not necessarily like, what am I trying to say? It's not that they need to turn it off. It's that turning off would solve the problem. Because he's got the tablet for most of the movie because he's trying to solve the puzzle on it. And if you just turned it off, like the ticking clock is made up from Hank Azaria puts little tiny Owen Wilson in a hourglass, and so Larry has to work out the code within an hour, or else Jedediah will suffocate in the sand. But if you turned the panel on the tablet, not only would all of your obstacles stop, like the evil mummy that's trying to take over the world would cease to be alive, but also Jedediah would naturally not be breathing anymore.
Become inanimate.
Become inanimate, so he has all the time in the world to save it, or better yet,
Spike it's for.
or better yet, he would have all the time in the world to just remove Jedediah from the hourglass, burn the evil mummy, I guess, and just remove everything. It's such. I really wish that that my best friend Thomas Lennon had thought of this.
Well, I mean, maybe to be fair, maybe their plan was to just retcon that part of the magic and just ignore it in the sequels, because there are things like that. But then he didn't write the third one. And someone watched the first one and was like, well, we should bring this back.
Right. Well, there you go.
But yeah, one thing that that is interesting about these two sequels. So Ricky Gervais's character, who's the curator of the museum, in 2 and 3 is so like befuddled and at 3 like explicitly learns the secret of the night at the museum. But in the first one, did you get that he knows?
No, I didn't think he knew.
Because so when he comes,
he doesn't know, because he doesn't believe Larry when he tells him that he's like, why is the cowboy in the ancient Rome exhibit?
Yeah, exactly. He says, why is the cowboy in the ancient Roman exhibit? But he says, you didn't watch over the exhibits good enough. He doesn't say you switched them.
So you think he knew?
I think he knew and was playing it cool in the first film, and I think that was like the plan, that like had they written the third film or like been more consistent in the second film, that it would have been like a wink, I always knew kind of thing. Who do you think put the tablet there? Because also the way he reacts to like the cavemen, he's like, ugh, like seeing the caveman battle. He's not like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? He's just like, But yeah, the line the line saying you didn't watch over them well enough is so telling. I think that line says a lot.
Right, interesting, because he does also get told Larry tells him the truth at the end of the second one. No, he tells him at the start of the third one, because at the end of the second one, Larry somehow convinces him that it's all just special effects, and they revitalize the museum's it's not popular with the kids anymore, but the way they fix that is they turn the tablet on at night, and so all the things come alive, and people think it's just insanely good special effects for 2009, before Larry reveals to him at the start of the third one that it is magic.
Yeah. The other one about the thing about Ricky Gervais' character is that it feels like they forgot what his character was, because the whole running joke of his character in the first film is that he never finishes his sentences, and he just doesn't do that in 2 and 3.
I didn't know.
And it's like you've forgotten how to write this character. You've forgotten that was a running joke, because you watch the first film and he keeps on being like, fool me once, shame on you. Yeah, almost every single sentence in that script, he just trails off and doesn't finish, and then it actually culminates in Ben Stiller finishing the "fool me once," shame on me thing. And it's just funny that it's like that was quite a fun running gag, and then to just completely abandon that is a strange choice. But it actually, because it's such a minor thing as well, it actually just feels like you just forgot you did that in the first one.
Okay. So, what do you think of
before you?
And what does it have on Rotten Tomatoes? What does Richard Tomatoes give it? That's the real question.
Ooh, what do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
So, if they're all consistent.
Well, the first one was 43, and that's the lowest one of the franchise, and we think it's consistent.
Okay, so 45,
44.
Fucking hell.
So I had seen this movie before. I remember seeing it in the cinema. I remember noticing the Jonas Brothers were playing the Cherubs, and then thinking like, oh, how do I know those angelic voices? And then they start singing Love Bug, and I'm like, oh yeah, their 2009 hit song Love Bug, like of course.
Because they showed up in this, and I was like, is that the Jonas Brothers? And I had to Google when the Jonas Brothers got big, because I was like, was 2009 too early for the Jonas Brothers?
Nah, it was like, so Love Bug had come out in 2008, so it's fully it's a very like kind of moment, but and I remember liking it. I was 16 when I saw this, and tell you what, we covered Sexual Awakenings on the podcast fairly recently. And it's funny because I've always had like a little bit of a crush on Amy Adams, and I don't like love any of them, and I haven't seen like Enchanted, which are like some of I guess she is in the Muppets movie, to be fair. You like her in Arrival? Yeah, but it's like going to see Arrival, I would have been like, oh, I love Amy Adams, right? And it's kind of like, and it's like, if you'd asked me, I would be like, yeah, I guess because she's in the Muppets. Like, I guess that's where I was first introduced to it. But no, it's because of this. And like, my God, I had such a crush on her. Like, specifically, and I don't want to get too gross here, but she's wearing these like skin tight pants. And I think Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian is like what made me an ass man. There's a fun out of context quote for you. Wow, Amy Adams, congratulations. But according to IMDb trivia, she hated having to wear the skin tight pants that her character wore because it showed off her behind. So, now I feel like a dick. Well, is it because Amelia Earhart shouldn't be a sexualized character and she should be recognized as no, that's the thing. She's not I wouldn't say she's necessarily sexualized in the film. I think she's wearing period accurate clothing. Maybe. Right. No, probably not. Now that I thought you were going to say period pants. Yeah. But you would probably be wearing those like reasonably form-fitting kind of things. And yeah, I mean, we don't need to dwell on this. She gives a good performance. It reminded me a lot of Cate Blanchett in The Aviator playing Audrey Hepburn. That is the very, how's it going, flyboy? Kind of thing. Catherine Hepburn. What did I say? Audrey Hepburn. Oh, right. Are they related? That's... I feel like I should know the answer.
Or
to
are there two separate famous old-timey Hepburns? A last name I have never heard in any other context, if not Catherine or Audrey.
Audrey Hepburn is not related to Catherine Hepburn.
That's insane.
They do have a lot in common, however, according to Google. Talent, beauty, the same star sign, multiple acting awards.
That is a lot in common, you're right. And so she gives a great performance, but I do want to talk about just her role in the story. And again, this is another one of the like things that you remember when we did Toy Story and we were like, I introduced a new segment called I Have Some Questions, where I questioned the logic of the universe and the magic. Right. Night at the Museum is a franchise which just pushes me into that headspace, and I'm not doing this to cherry pick, and I'm not doing it even to really criticize the movie. This is just how my brain works, right? And I'm watching this movie, and so she the whole time, her and Ben Stiller, her and Larry Daly have kind of a love story going throughout it. Yeah. Even though she's a come-to-life wax figure. At the end of the movie, he struggles to tell her the whole time that, you know, as soon as the tablet goes away or the sun comes up, that you'll cease to be living. So a devastating thing to tell anyone. Something that Buzz Lightyear certainly didn't take well in a similar movie. And at the end of this movie, after they save the day, he says to her, like, you've got to go. And she's like, I know what happens at sunlight, and talks, you know, is sort of at peace with it. So first of all, that's very interesting. And we see a similar beat in the third film where it's like these brought to life wax creatures and people are seemingly aware of their impending mortality and their you know, that this can't last forever. And in fact, there's a very interesting scene in the first film which doesn't really feel like it sticks, the logic of this doesn't really feel like it sticks around the rest of the series, where Robin Williams as Teddy Roosevelt confesses to Larry, I'm not Teddy Roosevelt, I'm a mannequin who was made in Poughkeepsie. He almost drops his accent a little bit and reveals, like, I'm just playing a role, yada yada yada, which it just brings up so many questions. So like they all kind of know that they're gonna die, then, or they all know that they're not really what they're dressed up as, which if they know that, then why does Jedediah still insist on acting like a cowboy and Octavius still insist on acting like a Roman general? Like, it's so interesting that they would, because you could make these movies and not delve into these implications. Yeah. And I really wouldn't think of them, but they kind of look them in the face. And like, I think it's hard to tell a story where you want to have a thematic statement to say about a character who'll turn to dust if the sunlight catches them, because that's not a real life thing. That can't happen in real life. And so they write a admittedly quite compelling tragic love story in the second one between Larry and Amelia Earhart, but then they don't really know how to take that anywhere existential, because it's not really an applicable lesson to real life, because in real life you won't turn to dust if the sun comes up. But to make it even more strange, at the end of the movie, so Larry's like, I've got an idea of how to save the museum, and the idea, as I said before, is they don't hide the magic, and that when he quits his job because he's now a successful inventor. He quits that job, which, side note, did you feel like Larry didn't like his new job in Night at the Museum too?
As an inventor?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Because the arc of his character is he goes back to doing what he loves, which is being a night guard. And I didn't feel like he disliked his new life.
Right, yeah. I mean, anyway, do we get the sense of like unfulfillment, I guess?
Not really. I don't think so anyway.
Happy. He's hanging out with George Foreman.
Yeah, if anything, like, and they could have done this and it would have been fine, but like, if anything, like, they mention how he gets paid like $11 an hour in the first one, and so I'm watching this being like, don't go back to your shitty night guard job when you've got, like, you know, you're being successful as a infomercial product salesman. But anyway, he quits his job and sells his company and uses that to buy back all the figures that were going to get shipped off. And he brings out the tablet so that people can come into the museum and see a T-Rex skeleton come to life, and they think it's an animatronic. But Larry knows and the audience knows it's actually magic. And then while he's there, he looks over and he sees Amy Adams turn up. And it's not Amelia Earhart, it's Amy Adams playing a separate character. And he goes up to her and is like, Tess, there we go. He goes up to her and is like, do we know each other? And she's like, no. And he's like, are you related to Amelia Earhart? And she's like, no. And then it ends with him going to show her something in the museum.
Because she's lost, which is a reference to Amelia Earhart.
Right.
Getting lost and being presumed dead. And her famous
another
voyage.
thing they don't really draw your attention to, which is, in my opinion, why you'd get Amelia Earhart in the story.
Why you'd get her? Why would you go through the effort of getting Amelia Earhart in your film and not doing that?
Well, I mean,
it was in her contract not to mention it.
There's a fun existential crisis you can play with if Wax Amelia Earhart thinks that her destiny is to disappear. And they don't really touch on that. Anyway, my point is that it doesn't quite know how to end its love story, and so he goes off with her, and then she's not in the third one, so presumably it didn't work out.
Yeah.
It feels like an abandoned plot thread, and a weird way to tie a bow on a love story.
Yeah, strange stuff.
And also, the tablet brings paintings to life in this one, in the sense that you can go inside paintings and portraits.
You can skidoo.
Yeah, you can skidoo. And he goes inside the one of the sailor kissing the woman after World War II, and meets Jay Baruchel in there, whom he accidentally leaves his phone with. And then in the last scene of the movie, you find out that Jay Baruchel is playing someone or other Motorola.
Joey Motorola.
Joey Motorola, which means that the photo in the Smithsonian allows Larry to time travel. It's not just he goes to in the third one they go inside the MC Escher stairs painting, and it's like that I can accept in the world of Night at the Museum.
Wacky Steps, I think it's called.
Yeah, Wacky Steps, and that's you can go inside that world. But in this, it explicitly confirms that time travel is a possibility, and they go and that's a whole movie in itself that they don't dwell on. So I thought that was funny. I also thought it was funny that he just straight up opens the underworld in this movie. The climax. It's like the Egyptian underworld breaking loose, which I was like, this is a completely different movie as well. I say all these things like criticisms. I did like this one. I thought it was quite fun.
Yeah, same.
One other thing, at the start of Night at the Museum 2, when Larry turns up at the museum and all the exhibits have been replaced with holograms, he turns on the Teddy Roosevelt hologram, who comes along and says something as Robin Williams playing the character. And I'm just like, who's the voice actor for this hologram? Because it's the same voice as the character who comes to life every night. It's this strange it's just like if it was just the wax statue, I would assume this is just what Teddy Roosevelt sounded like. But it's accurate to what the hologram character does, and there's no explanation for this. So many implications. So many implications.
All right, yeah. I've got some IMDb trivia here for us.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned a plot hole earlier in the film, but IMDb disagrees with you.
I'm glad. I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Because according to this piece of dumb IMDb trivia, the biggest unexplained plot hole is the absence of any other night guards, apart from Brundon and the underground guard, especially considered the vast site, its location, and importance to both the USA and the world. Additionally, no one seems to notice anything on CCTV, and nothing is on the city streets, such as cops doing night patrol, etc. So that wasn't the biggest plot hole.
I'm glad that I was wrong in what I said being the biggest plot hole, and not that it was going to explain the plot hole.
So the scene where Octavius confronts the squirrel on the lawn of the White House parallels the scene from the first movie where he and Jed sabotage the van. Both scenes intercut the action with a wide shot that emphasizes the small size of the characters. I mainly copy and pasted this one because this is our second film franchise which has scenes intercut with the action with a wide shot that emphasizes the small size of the characters after Ant-Man. Both Paul Rudd franchises too.
Yes, true.
The majority of the film takes place in one night, giving a further meaning to the title Night at the Museum.
I was going to bring this up, that the first one is called Night at the Museum because it's like, this is what happens at night at the museum.
As in the time of day, like, yeah.
Yeah, whereas this one is a single night at the museum.
Yeah. This one is more... Richard was dumb, IMDb trivia, but it was also dumbly worded. So this just says Jake Cherry's last film before he was replaced by actor Skylar Gisondo. That, like, I read this and I was like, what the fuck? They just replaced an actor, but then they mean in the franchise.
Yeah, so
Jake Cherry plays Nicky. Yeah,
Ben Stiller's son, Larry Daly's son, he's not played by the same guy in the third one. But the way that's worded makes it sound like this is some kind of North Korean dictatorship where Jake Cherry
that's what I
stood out of line, and so his role just in life was replaced
by Skylar Gisondo, who's the kid from. He's in a bunch of shit. He's in Booksmart. He's in the Vacation reboot, which we might be seeing him again next week,
or
next
maybe
fortnight.
we won't, because the voting is currently quite it's quite intense.
But he's also in The Social Dilemma, which is that Netflix documentary, and he has quite a large role in it, which no one told me about before I watched it, and it's fucking garbage and it's ridiculous and oh my god, it's the worst fucking thing I've ever seen. Also, Dick Van Dyke, Mickey Rooney, and Bill Cobbs don't show up in this sequel, only the third installment. Okay, I forgot to mention it because I mentioned it the first time we recorded, but not the second time. But Dick Van Dyke's role in this film, he's had an almost 80-year career on screen, and this was
and Richard, in any of that time, has he played a villain? Could this be his first villain role?
This is actually his only time playing an antagonist, or at least it was, because I remember reading that when reading that piece of trivia when the film came out. But it may I don't know what he's done since then.
What does he do in Mary Poppins Returns?
Yeah, he plays a banker in that. In Scrubs, he's not an antagonist, but he is like a not necessarily a positive force in the show. He's got a great role in Scrubs, but he also Mickey Rooney. We've mentioned him before, but he had an 88-year career in film, and because he's in the third one coming up in 2014, and also his role in The Muppets 2011, because of those films, he had at least one film in every decade from the 20s to the 10s, which is 10 different decades he appeared on film. It's the longest film career in the history of the medium.
Wow, that's a great little thing for Mickey Rooney.
Yeah, because like he started acting in films when he was like 4. And right up until he was fucking in his 90s.
I quite like him in Night at the Museum as well. He's like just a shit old man. Like, it's just it's funny.
He's he died aged 93 in 2014. So he actually did die before Night at the Museum came out, but it was a little bit, the third one came out, but it was a little bit overshadowed, but we will get to that. So Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb 2014, also directed by Sean Levy. What do you think it is on Rotten Tomatoes?
46.
47.
Oh wow! So this is a rare example of the score actually getting higher with each movie. Like they're not good scores, but rarely do we see it still go up one to two each movie.
Well, being so consistent as well. Like the entire franchise falls within a spectrum of 4%.
Have we seen anything like this before?
I don't know. I mean, like for looking at specifically like more than 2 film franchises, because those are quite easy to get. It would have to be, very. I mean, I guess Toy Story.
Yeah, right,
But
true.
that's just because there's an upper limit to it, you know?
Yeah, the only other time we've seen this happen is with what we've crowned the greatest film franchise that exists.
But even that, it's like, it almost feels like, it's like, okay, yeah, if it's 99/100, it's like, okay, all the reviews are positive. That's one thing. It is obviously an insane achievement on its own, but for them to all sit around the exact same mark, that, like, because quite often you get films like this where it's like one's not really better or worse than the other one, but it just, one of them has 20% more or less.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to see them fall this closely together.
It's such an unassuming franchise to have this kind of like landmark qualifier in our canon, in our compendium of film franchises. Like the only other kind of thing I can think of, which is much better received, is I feel like the similar thing happened with the Kung Fu Panda movies. That there's a trilogy of them, and none of them are really seen as the better or worse than the others, you know.
So what is another museum, Secret of the Tomb, about?
Secret of the Tomb is about Larry is now running the museum. Well, he's not running it, but he's, you know, his plan to bring the tablet out at night is successful, and it's popping off. But the tablet itself has got some kind of weird curse on it where the magic is fading, and the only way that he can fix it, because when the magic fades, everyone starts going cuckoo. All the things brought to life by the tablet start going nuts.
Absolutely cuckoo bananas.
Absolutely. And so he takes it to the British Museum of Natural History, wherein Akhmun Ra's parents live, with, you know, their mummies exist, because they should know how to fix it. And so they go there. A bunch of the characters tag along, because it would be a shame for them to not.
Yeah.
And they have an adventure in the British Museum before it ends quite solemnly with all of the museum characters from the New York Museum saying that, hey, maybe the tablet should stay here with the mummies. And we will
so
take...
the family could be together.
The family can be... And, you know, they don't mention the brother that's not with them who died in the second film, because he was the villain.
He's cast out to the underworld.
Yeah. But, yeah, so it ends quite solemnly with the characters deciding to live a world as inanimate.
It's a very Toy Story 3 ending.
Yeah.
Where they all just accept their fate and... You know, like, no, we got to save you. And they just go, no, actually, you know what? This is okay. And so they have their final night at the museum and they put them back and they all just say, hey, like, you know, we're accepting the fact that we may never be animate again.
And am I to understand correctly the way they get around the fact that they would turn to dust if sunlight hits them is they catch a plane at night in London back to New York, where they'll... I guess if they're in the box, they're not going to be seen by sunlight. So that makes sense. Yeah. Never mind.
But yeah, they get back. It's like they've been awoken by the tablet and they can now, like, you know, get away. But yeah, they make a point of saying, like, yeah, if we get this flight, we can be back and it still be night.
At the museum.
So yeah, a few new characters in this one. You've got Sir Lancelot, played by Dan Stevens. Again, following the tradition of Ricky Gervais and Jonah Hill. You've got Rebel Wilson, 2014's Rebel Wilson, playing the wacky security guard at the British Museum, doing just like a silly British accent kind of thing. Also, yeah, Mickey Rooney, Bill Cobbs, and Dick Van Dyke show up again. But yeah, there's also a very strange cameo from Hugh Jackman and Alice Eve playing themselves, because Lancelot goes along to a production of Camelot, which is, you know, starring those two, and they're like, no, listen, mate, I'm Hugh Jackman, and this is all fake, and this whole thing, it's a very weird.
Hugh Jackman does this shit a lot. I think he's always doing cameos as himself, where he seems to have a good sense of humor about it.
Yeah, I will say though, I'm. It's funny. And I think it's the difference between releasing a film in 2009 and 2014 is that releasing a comedy movie in 2014, you have to have a cameo. Like, I can't remember what film it was, but I remember going to a film. It was something along the lines Fist Fight, which I don't actually know if fits into this, but it's like just going to see a very generic studio comedy and going, I wonder what the cameo will be. And having that thought in my head and thinking like, wait, there's nothing to indicate there would be a cameo on it. Actually, I think it might have been Game Night, which isn't at all a generic studio comedy, but it's a fantastic movie. And then what's his name? Dexter shows up at the end. And I was like, I guess that's the cameo. And it's like, it feels like every studio comedy you go see has to have someone show up playing themselves or, just an actor who you would think is too good for the role, just show up and be funny for like a very brief moment. And it's just, it's just a weird thing that it feels like a very 2010s thing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though. Alice Eve, is she famous enough to just be like, I'm Alice Eve?
Well, she's no Luke Youngblood.
Like, what are you talking about?
So we once had a discussion about who the least famous person to play themselves is. And we decided that it was Luke Youngblood plays himself in
Dr. Ken?
Dr. Ken, yeah.
Yeah.
Luke Youngblood, who's Magnitude in Community. So anyway, there's a fun little...
But I like... And Alice Eve is more famous than Luke Youngblood. But the way they do it in the movie is that... In Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb...
It should be Nicole Kidman.
It should be Nicole Kidman. It should be someone who you immediately recognise, but it's someone who you may recognise, but then be like... Oh, her name is Alice Eve. I did not know that was the name of that actress.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So you hadn't seen this movie before? You hadn't seen the sequels?
No, I hadn't seen this one. And let me just say, like, usually when I look at a movie series and I go, I don't know which one's my favorite or which one I like the most, I think a lot of the times I'm lying. Or at least like gun to my head, I could tell you what I think is probably the most well-received one. But with this trilogy, like, genuinely, and it's not, to be perfectly honest, I'm not even really complimenting it. I'm genuinely just like, I don't think there is a best one. I think they're all about as good as each other.
Yeah. No, nice. So, yeah, I hadn't seen this film before either. And this is actually, it's one of 16 franchises where I've seen all but one of the films prior to watching the podcast, doing the podcast. A lot of those are two film franchises, though. So not including the two film franchises. You've got Spider-Man, which, as we covered it, the only one I hadn't seen was Amazing Spider-Man 2, but we covered it with the Rami films.
Right.
The Hobbit or Middle Earth, because I'd seen the first two and not the third one, or the sixth one, depending on how you look at it. Spy Kids, didn't watch the fourth one. Meet the Parents, never saw Little Fockers, but that kind of, because I'm not including the original. The Planet of the Apes reboot and Indiana Jones, which I hadn't seen. Temple of Doom, but also actually one other fun, may or may not be considered fun addition to this is I watched Die Hard 2 for the first time for this podcast, but I'd seen the other four.
Tying the lost episodes together.
Yeah, so this is with The Hobbit, Spy Kids, Meet the Parents, and the Apes reboot. This is like the fourth, fifth franchise where I watched them and liked them, and they just never saw the last one.
And another fun stat, Richard, is that this is our second franchise in a row in which a character is looking for the Holy Grail in the third film in the series, because Lancelot, played by Dan Stevens, is it briefly mentions he's looking for the Holy Grail in this. And it's more sort of a throwaway joke, but I did think it was funny to have a twofer with Last Crusade from Indiana Jones and then this one. But yeah, Dan Stevens, great in this movie. I love Dan Stevens, and he's a compelling. He double crosses them, so he's a bit of a villain. And there's the final confrontation. He's made of wax, and his nose is melting. And my God, I thought that was funny. Like the idea of taking a scene which without a certain element wouldn't be like would fit in a drama, but adding a superficial comedic element to it makes it perfect for a comedy, because his nose is melting and it's flopping around like Squidward during the like emotional climax of the movie.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah. But so I quite enjoyed this film. I actually ended up rating it higher than the other two. But that is specific because I was like, really coming here and be like, this is a perfect 3.5-star franchise. I ended up giving this film 4 stars. And so that is because obviously you referenced it earlier on, but this film has this like really solemn metatextual element to it that this is Robin Williams' last on-screen performance. He is in one other film that came out after this called Absolutely Anything. Which do you know about this film?
Okay, I knew about The Angriest Man in Brooklyn. Did that?
Oh, yeah, that was before. But yeah, do you know about Absolutely Anything?
No.
It looks fucking awful. I remember it like being announced like before he passed away, and thinking like, fuck, that sounds like absolute shit. And then oh my god. So it's stars Simon Pegg, and it's about he's like imbued with these powers of being able to do absolutely anything. Part of that is that he allows his dog to speak, and his dog is played by Robin Williams, but he's given these powers by a group of very terrible looking CGI aliens played by John Cleese, Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle, Terry Jones, and Michael Palin, obviously members of Monty Python.
I remember the trailer for this.
Oh my god. And so yeah, I'm not counting. I mean, I know obviously this is Robin Williams' last performance he left us, but that's not an on-screen. His on-screen persona. Yeah. But yeah. So I like you. So I hadn't seen this film before, but I had seen the clip of like Robin Williams, like final moments on screen, and what it is that he's saying goodbye to Larry, or Larry's saying goodbye to him. And he hops up on his horse, which we've seen him do every time, and then he strikes his pose and then turns to wax. But he has this final conversation with Larry where he's like, well, I can't be a night guard anymore because you guys aren't going to come alive. And he says, I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. And Robin Williams says, how exciting. And it's such a beautiful line. And then he
magical.
He hops up
sparkles as he says it.
He hops up on his horse, strikes his pose, and then goes bully and like gives Larry a fright. And it's this great like final Robin Williams thing that it's like a beautiful solemn moment, and then doing a quick laugh, and then he's like, I got you. But then his final line he delivered on screen in his entire career is he says, smile, my boy, it's sunrise. And my God, I think that's the most fucking beautiful like thing I've ever seen. I've like when I first watched this clip in 2015, being like, oh, what was this final scene in Night at the Museum? I was just like blown away by this line, and it's like I can't even necessarily articulate like just the idea. Like the idea of sunrise, obviously, is like it's the night ending and the day beginning, and it's like this beautiful time of transition.
Religious.
And obviously, it looks beautiful, but just the smile, my boy, at sunrise is just like hands down for me one of like the most beautiful fucking lines of dialogue in film history. But and it's it's obviously especially because of the metatextual elements, and so I knew this was coming, and as like they come back to New York, and there's this moment where like he says goodbye to Jedediah and Octavius, and then he says goodbye to Attila the Hun, who we haven't even mentioned yet, but Attila the Hun is a character in these films, and he speaks Hunnish, which is an improvised language that they just sort of make vague language sounds throughout the whole franchise. And at the end, and they've had this kind of vaguely antagonistic relationship, but they team up, but there's always a bit of animosity there. And as they're saying goodbye, Attila says, my friend. And I was like, holy shit. And I started to well up.
Richard, this is getting to you.
It is. And I genuinely started to well up. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that the goodbye to Attila the Hun is actually like making me. I started to have tears well up in my eye.
The least funny of all the main museum characters.
Exactly. And then when and then I think he says goodbye to Dexter after that, and I was like, oh yeah, this is just a weird because he kisses the monkey on the mouth, and it's a very strange moment, but I thought it was kind of funny. And then it cuts to Robin Williams, Teddy Roosevelt saying goodbye to Sacagawea, who's another character we haven't mentioned, who's in all of these films, and the plot part of the first film is that he has this crush. Teddy Roosevelt has a crush on Sacagawea, and they end up becoming essentially together. And as soon as it like cut to Robin Williams and her saying goodbye, I started to like genuinely full on cry, and like legit, I haven't cried since February of last year. Like I cry so infrequently.
Why did you cry then?
It was personal.
Do I know about this?
I think.
Why
so.
did you cry? Do you remember when you were a kid in primary school and people were like, or if I died, would you cry?
Yeah.
Or like, so your mate goes to his nana's funeral, and when you see him the next day, you're like, did you cry?
I mean, obviously, you know, especially New Zealand as well. There's a lot of things around keeping your emotions bottled up, and I'm not just saying this to like sound tough or cool. Although I hope you do think I am tough and cool.
I think crying is tough and cool.
Yeah, I cry so often. I wish I could cry more often, kind of thing.
Oh, same.
But yeah, February last year, I was really upset about something, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to cry. And I put on the Chester Bennington tribute concert where they perform in the end with their favorite guest of the night, you, the audience, and that gets me every time. And, you know, just like watched a bunch of sad, listen to a bunch of sad songs, and so that I could actually just like force tears out of myself and had a cry.
Any sad moment from Lost is what gets me. Just while we're mentioning our prompts to tearing up.
But when also, one that like I have to stop myself every time because I emotions start to well up is when the whole band and the rest of the Muppets come in when they do Rainbow Connection in the 2011 film. Like just listening to that on Spotify, because Rainbow Connection was my most played song on my Spotify Wrapped this year, but they're from the original film, not that version, because I can't listen to it without wanting to cry. But so yeah, anyway, genuinely last time I actually cried was February of last year. And the time, because when you talk about crying in a movie, it's quite often just a single tear rolling down your cheek kind of thing. I think I mentioned in when we did Fast and Furious that like 7 actually kind of either did or almost made me cry. Watching Toy Story 3 when we did but those were very much like single tear. The way I cried in Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb was like actually like a full-on cry. And I haven't actually cried at a movie like this since I saw The Impossible when it came out in the cinema, and that was 2012.
I love how many fucking just insanely different movies we're throwing out here to describe when we've cried.
But like fucking a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I need to cry. Maybe a month or so ago. And so I put on Big Fish. I was like, this always makes me cry. And I didn't cry. But yeah, my God. So I knew this scene was coming. And so I knew it was coming out. But then and I was like, oh, it's going to be sad. I'm going to be emotional. But then I didn't fucking expect Attila the Hun saying goodbye and calling Larry his friend to like get those fucking waterworks turned on. And then it cut to Robin Williams, and I just started full on crying. And it felt good. Like, Jess started to make fun of me for crying, and I was like, I've needed this for so long.
Jess doing her part for New Zealand's toxic masculinity.
I know, right? I was like, Jess, you fucking cry at everything. And of course she cried when I said that. No, that didn't happen. But yeah, oh my God. Like I wrote about in my Letterboxd review that this film made me cry. And like, I want everyone to know how not only was I not joking or lying or like a hint of any kind of sarcasm, but how monumental of an achievement that is. And
it's from this movie we all agree are fine. This trilogy that we all agree are like, yeah, pretty good. Yeah. They're all about 3 stars. But
yeah, I wish I could cry. I envy people who cry more frequently.
Oh yeah, it's a superpower. Does Night at the Museum, is Night at the Museum then our third franchise in which it unintentionally contains a poignant scene from an actor who would die before, would die, because you've got Paul Walker in Furious 7, but also and I can find this out because it's our most watched Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in most of the James Bond movies. His final scene before he died was in The World Is Not Enough, where he like is literally being lowered on a elevator, and you see him like exit frame, and what could have been seen as somewhat of a poignant way.
But yeah, like to me, that final scene saying goodbye to Robin Williams is like, it's this film's, do you think, or this franchise's, do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he created? That it's like, yeah, this fucking gorgeous thing, and it's like, oh my god, what a perfect piece of dialogue, what a perfect performance and perfect moment. Yeah, do you know that's from Spy Kids 2? Do you know that's from Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb? I mean, obviously, it's slightly different because the mechanic of him saying goodbye only works because it's Night at the Museum.
Yeah. And it does, like, to bring it into the conversation of the trilogy as a whole, it is interesting how that line and that ending is like a definitive ending to a trilogy. I don't think I expected Night at the Museum to be a complete series.
That's the thing. And so, like, I mean, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about Secret of the Tomb. I will quickly say, one, I didn't bother to count, but we've done so many Goes to London sequels. It feels like such a trope. Two, the stakes are like, or the plot, it's like, you know how Mad Max Fury Road is literally just a U-turn? That's the entire movie. It's like this really simplified thing. This is just like the plot of Night at the Museum is take a thing at night to someone, they say, put it in the moonlight. And
that's right. I did think that as well.
It's such a weirdly simple, like straightforward quest for the thing.
Well, it's more the solution is like almost a frustratingly simple.
Yeah, if you're just taking it outside,
to fix the tablet, you just put it in moonlight. Yeah. No, the only other thing I wanted to question is like, what are the full ramifications of the power of the tablet? Because I was thinking, because they kind of go into it in this one, and because I'm thinking like it must be that it's designed so that the Pharaoh's family can live forever, can always be together, basically. That's what they tell you it was designed for. But it works on mannequins, so therefore the terms of the magic must be pretty vague. It reminds me of how, like, what was the specific wording of what spoilers for Avengers Endgame, when Tony snaps the Infinity Gauntlet, what is he thinking that makes it so that both everyone comes back and Thanos and what specific one thought is he thinking to get the snap to work? What specific magic is happening that is both bringing things back from the dead and bringing back anything that resembles a human to life, but also like it makes models of vehicles work, it makes what is the magic? And it also has to be contained within a building, but then also at one point they go outside and some stone lions come to life because they're in proximity of the tablet. I don't know. Again, this isn't even a criticism. This is just how my mind works.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. So that's kind of our discussion on Night at the Museum, all wrapped up. Although, we're not the only ones discussing it because we've got a new segment, or it's still a relatively new segment, for our podcast called Meeting of the Elders. What was once our movie club tier on Patreon has been revamped a little bit, and it's now the Cult Elder tier. So if you join that tier, you can join an exclusive channel on our Discord, and you can give us your hot or cold takes, and we'll read them out on pod and discuss them.
Yeah, so if you want to get involved in this, guys, then head on over to patreon.com/cultpopture and join our Cult Elder tier, and you'll get access to a secret Discord channel where you can talk about this sort of thing with us.
So Abradan Lincoln, because but so that everyone does fun Night at the Museum related names, said, cold take, They are really fun, wholesome, crowd-pleasing films for the whole family that undoubtedly have heavily improved foot traffic to museums. It was incredibly smart of the Smithsonian to work with the filmmakers because I remember peers discovering about the Smithsonian and wanting to go to DC, but the Smithsonian doesn't have an underground system like that. LOL! A rare capitalized LOL, which you don't usually see this side of 2008.
Don't see that every day anymore.
Yeah, Smithsonian is
there an XD for good measure?
Yeah, he points out that the Smithsonian is a collection of free entry museums in Washington D.C. Although Dan doesn't, they are there in the film. Dan maybe doesn't know about any kind of underground tunnel systems because they probably want to keep them secret. But it is that does. One thing I point out that Sean Levy was. In an interview said that the Smithsonian, once they agreed to lend their name to the film, they were like incredibly helpful, willing to share information about the real life characters in the movie. And it was the first film shot at the Smithsonian, and that really, really ended up helping. But it was when they had the Darth Vader cameo that like a Lucasfilm employee had to be on set and say what Vader would or wouldn't do, and it's actually the fictional IPs that they're really precious about, not the real life Smithsonian Museum. But yeah, there is apparently like it's observable that there was like a massive influx of interest in museums after these.
Well, they achieved the same thing that is achieved in the movies,
exactly.
The madness going on.
So
nice.
Vincent says, other than the whole franchise being a fun family adventure to be enjoyed, the goodbye between Teddy Roosevelt and Larry in the final movie is amazing. And he quotes, "I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow. How exciting!" Got me the first time I saw the movie. Robin passing months before this released, and having this beautiful goodbye is just emotional to watch. Couldn't agree more. It's actually. It's kind of even sadder as well than you might think at first, because like there's an article written by Robin Williams' widow called "The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain," and it talks about how he had a rare thing called Lewy body disease, which essentially it's a deteriorative brain disease.
Degenerative,
yeah. But it actually deteriorates your brain kind of thing. But so in between the last two Night at the Museums, he did like a 5-month stint on Broadway, with like a 2 or 3 hour show, and every night never missed a single word. Apparently, like on the set of Night at the Museum 3, he'd struggle to remember a single line at a time, and would get really upset because like his memory had started to fade so much, and the dopamine neurons in his brain were starting to so he actually just became unable to feel joy and all this stuff. Like it's a tragic thing, and it kind of I guess it sort of gets you a bit more into his headspace for that last year or so. Horrible stuff. And yeah, it just makes that goodbye just too emotional to watch. Michael says, "I watched number 3 last night. That's my hot take," because he lives with a friend of mine who I work with, who asked what I was doing after work. I said, "Watching Night at the Museum 3," and I said, "You should watch it too." And so he came home and made Michael watch it. But Michael also goes on to point out that the gala scene at the start of the third movie felt like a Dolby Atmos demo clip with all the things flying around the camera, which is such a fucking good observation, Michael. That's so funny. Yeah. Like, it absolutely, because there's not only is there all these things moving past, but a lot of them are light globes and stuff like that.
It's because the tablet brings the cosmos exhibit to light. To life. It's so you see Orion and all these sorts of things. Yeah, so funny. Before we move on, I forgot one piece of dumb IMDb trivia for Night at the Museum: Secret of the Tomb, which is this is the only movie in the trilogy not to be released 3 years later, and not to show the full opening credits at the beginning. I mean, just as interesting as that, Battle of the Smithsonian is the only one not to be released 5 years later. It's you can't say it's the only one when there's 2. Right? Yeah. It favors the lesser, not the Nice.
All right, so that's meeting adjourned. That's the other thing we say.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yep.
Meeting adjourned. Dum dum.
Dun dun.
Yeah. So, continue the franchise. This is a segment where we each pitch a continuation of the franchise and discuss what else is coming up potentially or other things that we've missed for the franchise. So I didn't mention it at the start, but this is actually Night at the Museum is based on a book.
Right.
A children's book called The Night at the Museum by Milan Trink.
Which makes it our second Robin Williams franchise to be based on a book and feature a stampede.
Yeah. The book has a sequel, so the book came out in 1993. And it had a sequel in 2013, which is very similar to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where it's like, this classic children's book, and then they do a sequel like after the movies have come out. But the sequel is called Another Night at the Museum, which was the working title for the second film.
And if we can talk about titles just briefly, because there's not too much I want to say. There is part of me that is like, would it have been better to be a night at the museum, Another Night at the Museum, etc., etc. I thought it'd be funny since a knight is the main character, is the main villain, and the third one to be like Knight Knight at the museum. But I do have to say, like, in a rare gold star for the Night at the Museum trilogy, I have no complaints about these titles.
Yeah.
They are consistent. They are, they don't have a numerical. There's no number in the titles of any of them, which I prefer. They're both something of the something. If I was to say anything, I'd say like. Battle feels like it's more epic than Secret, so it almost feels like I assumed Secret of the Tomb was the second one until I actually looked at when they came out. But that's not even really a complaint. But also, even if you look at the posters of these movies next to each other, it's this beautifully consistent design across all three movies, and we haven't seen something quite this satisfying from a franchise, I don't think, since like Look Who's Talking or maybe Mission Impossible. Like, I just think these are wonderfully consistent titles, and I love to see it.
There's a couple of posters for the first film, which features like him looking away from the camera and this like bright light, and then there's one that's him facing towards the camera, and the towards the camera is a lot more in line with the other two. But that first one of him looking into this blinding light is such a beautiful thing.
When you don't have to tell anyone that Ben Stiller is your main your main actor in
it. You also mentioned their Mission Impossible, but this is our second franchise to feature running either from or inspired by Mission Impossible, because apparently Ben Stiller watched all the Mission Impossible movies and spoke to his friend Tom to get his running technique down for the films.
He does turn into somewhat of an action star in these out of nowhere. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, a little bit, yeah. And to be fair, his running's like impressed me. So. Yeah, other than that, we've got Alan Menken is working on a stage adaptation musical, which has been in development for a couple of years now, and obviously a lot of the work had to be done remotely through Zoom. But most notably, we've got Night at the Museum, Carmen Ra Rises Again, which is a feature-length animated movie coming out next year on Disney+. So this was originally announced in 2018 to be a TV series based on Night at the Museum, but has now since we've found out that it is a new movie. It's given that official title, Kamen Rises Again. It'll be CGI animated. Centers on Larry's son Nick, who is hesitant to follow in his father's footsteps as a night watchman, in addition to Nick and the titular villain, Hank Azaria's character. The movie will also feature returning characters Jedediah Octavius, Teddy Roosevelt, and the addition of Joan of Arc. What do you think of that?
Okay, interesting.
I'm not happy about it.
I knew there was a fourth one coming out and it was going to be animated and it was something Rises Again, but I was kind of hoping it would be like enough of a soft reboot that I could still consider the original trilogy to be like this untainted bastion of adequacy.
Yeah.
Whereas this feels like it could potentially be the worst, to be the bad apple and remove its gold star status.
Yeah, well, it is annoying because I like you said, I didn't realize that the third one was so beautifully complete, and and it like completely ends the franchise definitively.
Mm.
And I'm worried that returning to that world
in another medium as well.
Yeah, the TV series was announced as being like a reboot, and I think an animated Night of the Museum series is like, why didn't this already happen? You know, like how did someone not already think of this idea and make a Saturday morning cartoon? You know,
yeah. Instead, they're doing it well after the coal has died down.
Yeah, and they're setting it in the same world. It's bizarre. They haven't announced a cast or anything like that, so we don't know who's coming back. If anyone,
I reckon no one will come back.
Yeah,
you don't need to. You don't need to bring anyone back for it.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the art style looks like as well.
Actually, Hank Azaria might return because he's a voice actor.
Alrighty then, what is your continued franchise?
My continued franchise is, I reckon, I've got two ways I could go with this. I thought of a Halloween special called Fright Night at the Museum.
Nice.
And initially I thought this could just be like there's a vampire exhibit that turns up at the museum, or like the museum is decorated to be Halloween-esque, by just someone who has no idea of what the powers of the tablet have, and then whoever's the night guard then has to deal with like paper mache pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns coming to life, and like cheap $2 store monsters coming to life. So that's the first idea. But then I thought, what if, and this is a lot more out there, what if it's just like a story about like a vampire coven that like nomadic vampires who roam America feasting and that, and they end up at the museum where they then have to just deal with this Egyptian curse or this Egyptian tablet bringing everything to life. And it's just like a really interesting like crashing of two different magics together.
Nice.
Like what happens when a completely different film wanders into another film.
It's funny, like after we criticized last time so much of like crashing two magics together.
And Indiana Jones, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, if you do it on purpose, I think it works.
While watching the third film, I was thinking like, oh, okay, I'll do Day at the Museum kind of thing, and it's like, oh, it's the next one. But then again, like after realizing that it's
Day at the Museum and nothing happens.
Yeah. It's just nothing happened. But I did think that, and then because that was the joke I was going to make, but I did think one thing that I'm surprised wasn't explored at any point is that the villain in Night at the Museum's plan should be to turn humans into wax.
Right.
Like
okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be I would not be surprised. And I'll almost be surprised if it's not this that Carmen rises when he rises again. That'll be his plan, is to turn people into wax. But yeah, so that's my idea. Day at the Museum, and it's a soft reboot. So it's just it's coming in. No, assuming you kind of know the rules of Night at the Museum, but it reintroduces you to the world anyway. But it's not Larry and the gang; it's a new one. But the villain's plan in it is to turn people into wax.
Before having seen these, my initial idea was going to be like the tablet goes to some other like a wax museum. And like Night of the Wax Museum, because I was like, how funny would it be to see like non-historical, because theoretically the magic should apply regardless of if it's a historical figure or not. But then Darth Vader and Oscar the Grouch appeared in in the second one, and I was like, oh well, I guess they did the idea that I was going to suggest.
All right, now it's time for our favorite segment.
I've got it open.
Ranking the franchise.
Sweet. So if you guys go over to our Letterboxd account, we have a list called FFF Ranking, where we rank every single franchise we've ever watched. This is our 143rd franchise. And we're going to rank it alongside these. Interestingly enough, as we've sort of teased, what would have been a great reveal, but I announced it too early by accident, is that this is a rare example we have of what we consider, at least for the moment, to be a gold star franchise, which is when a franchise does not have any entries in it which would be considered necessarily the weakest biggest by a large margin. Other franchises that carry a gold star include Toy Story, the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy, Three Colors Blue, Kill Bill, The Evil Dead, Fistful of Dollars, The Raid, Kung Fu Panda. I think that's all of them. So it's a pretty, if we're in agreement that this is a gold star franchise, then this is a pretty rare occasion. And I don't think since we invented the gold star have we actually assigned one.
Yeah, true. All right. So I think franchises that this is probably comparable to, I mean, it's definitely above the Nymphomaniac constant. You mentioned Kung Fu Panda earlier. Do you think it's better or worse than Kung Fu Panda?
I think it's worse than Kung Fu Panda.
But not worse than Happy Feet?
Another Robin Williams.
2006
oh my God,
top 10 highest grossing film.
I've accidentally dragged Daddy's Home up instead of Night of the Museum. Let me just fix this.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Oh, you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah. Just hit cancel.
So
it goes between Kung Fu Panda and Happy Feet. It's at number 50.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to put Night of the Museum.
And
so stroppy.
All right, now there's not much left to do, but one thing is to reveal what franchise we're going to be discussing next week. And how do we decide it this week, AJ?
So not usually, sometimes we'll draw a random number and that'll tell us what our next franchise is. But to this fortnight is, of course, voted on by our Patreon. So over on Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture, every 2 weeks or so, we'll put up a FFF suggestion thread where you suggest a franchise and the one with the most likes is the one we're doing. And Richard, it's our final film franchise Fortnights of 2021. This one will be. And we asked everyone to submit Christmassy franchises, that being either ones that have a single Christmas film at least in them, or ones that have a Christmas vibe, maybe ones that are about
Christmas
winter.
vibe!
And there's some pretty interesting interpretations of that. We love to see it. And so, but the one with the most votes is what, Richard? Have you got it open?
I do have it open, and I can tell you, it's a. It was a hotly fought battle. Some of the ones that didn't quite make the cut. Disney's Beauty and the Beast, because the second animated film was Belle's Enchanted Christmas, I believe it's called. Bridget Jones.
Somewhat snowy.
God's Not Dead had a pretty... actually, tell you what, Die Hard fought pretty valiantly until it was deleted as a comment.
For canonical reasons. Listen to old episodes if you want to understand why that is.
The winner, in second place, with just one vote behind, we have the Vacation franchise, which means that next fortnight, for our final episode of the year, we're going to be covering Frozen, which... The
two Frozen films.
Can I just say, what a fucking fantastic way to end the year. Two easy breezy cover girl films. Just, I'm looking forward to watching
a year
this.
that we started with Barbie, we're ending with Disney's Barbie.
Yeah. No, two franchises made to sell toys, bookending the year. All right, AJ, where can people find us? Let's get out of here. We've already recorded this episode twice. Let's not do it. Let's not make this any longer.
If you enjoyed this episode and this is your first time listening, then please be sure to support us at all the different social medias. Mainly, I'd say you should follow us on Twitter and Instagram at cultpopture. You can also head along to our Discord, which is in the show notes, and jump on the Discord there and say hi. You can also support us on Patreon, where you get all those wonderful rewards like Meeting of the Elders and to be able to suggest and vote on next franchises we do. Although that reward will be sleeping for a wee while after Frozen, because we'll be doing a yearly break of film franchise fortnights, which means we do more work for off weeks. It's confusing. It's supposed to be like a break, but then we end up doing all these other podcasts that give us more work. And you can also suggest a post-credit scene, which you'll hear in just a second. You can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. You can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us for one night at the museum. No.
Last
One
Night Museum.
Last Night in the Museum. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credit scene. Richard, lay it on me. What's our post-credit scene? Who's it from and what does it say?
Today's post-credit scene comes to us from Benjamin Adams, who
hello,
writes... Hi, Ben. Who says, if you had to choose a movie to watch weekly for 1 year, 52 watches, what movie would you pick and why?
Of course, inspired by our older brother podcast, The Worst Idea of All Time. What movie would you? Do you want to do this to torture yourself, or because you know you can take it?
Yeah. Night at the Museum 2.
I reckon I have a memory of getting Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, the movie, as a kid, and just playing it on repeat in the lounge. And for some reason that was relaxing. And so because I don't want to do this with a movie that I like because I worry it'd ruin it, and I don't want to do it with a movie I would completely hate because I feel like that would ruin my life. I do with a movie I have somewhat fond memories of, and pick Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius.
Nice, that's a good. That's an interesting answer. Yeah, I'm trying to think of my. I guess 52 watches is gonna get sickening no matter what you do.
Do you want something with like a real hot sex scene in it or something? So,
well, but then you just become desensitized to it.
Do you reckon, or would it be like forever? There's always going to be something in there that lights up a certain synapse in your brain.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 300 Rise of an Empire.